Hi, Mike Perry here, Senior SFG, and today I'm going to give you 5 tips to improve your getup. The first exercise that we're going to cover is the kettlebell floor press. So we're going to start in the sideline position. We're going to take our hand, we're going to place it through the handle, and we want to keep our wrist neutral for the duration of the press. Also, we want our elbows against our ribs, so when we roll onto our back, we put our shoulder in a nice, safe, and stable position. So once we roll over and we're in that supine position, there's a few things we want to start off doing. One, we want to find the optimal angle from the torso. So most people are going to be at approximately a 45-degree angle. From there, you can dial it in and tweak it so it's optimal for yourself or for your student. The second thing we want to focus on is the scapular or shoulder blade positioning. We want our shoulder blades back and down, or retracted and depressed, however you want to call it. Once we have those two positions, the last thing we want to focus on is the actual shoulder joint. We want to make sure the shoulder's not tipping forward at any point during the floor press. So once we find the optimal starting position, we're going to press up, we're going to have that white knuckle grip. We can also use the opposing hand to create tension. We're going to actively pull down, we're going to tap the floor, and then press up. We're going to actively pull down and then press up. When you're finished with your set, you're going to put 2 hands on the bell. You're going to go over into that sideline position and place the kettlebell down safely. If you want to have a strong get up, you need to have a strong lunge. And now I'm going to share with you 2 different lunge variations that will absolutely have a positive carryover to a full get up. The first one is a traditional reverse lunge with a symmetrical load. So we're going to get set up in the 90-90 position, meaning the front knee is at approximately 90 degrees and so is the rear knee. We want our ears directly over our shoulders and our shoulders over our hips. From here, we're going to get set up. We're going to crush the grip on the kettlebells. We're going to stand up, and then we're going to do our reverse lunge. We're going to control the descent. We're going to tap the deck lightly and then stand up. We're going to control our descent, tap the deck lightly, and then stand up. Make sure that you choose a weight that will allow you to control the eccentric portion of the lunge, but also own the concentric portion of the lunge. The second lunge variation is basically taken right out of the getup. This is an overhead lunge with a single kettlebell overhead. Like I said, it's identical to the lunge that you'll see in the getup, but we're going to pull it out of the getup and use it as a standalone exercise to improve your full getup. So we're going to get that kettlebell overhead, and when we're in that overhead position, just make sure that everything is stacked. So the bell's going to be over the shoulder joint, the shoulders are going to be over the hips, and everything is aligned. From here, we're just going to perform the identical reverse lunge that we see in a full getup. So we're going to drop step, control the descent, we're going to land 90 degrees, approximately 90 degrees, and then we're going to stand up. This variation is a little bit tougher due to the fact that it's an asymmetrical load, but it will absolutely carry over to your full getup. Before I teach any of my students a full getup, I teach them a reverse plank, and I'm going to show you the progression I walk them through, again, before we introduce a full getup. Now we want to start with a nice tall posture in the seated position. We're going to externally rotate our shoulders, our fingertips are going to be pointed behind us. From there, we're going to squeeze our shoulder blades back and we're going to push down into the ground. So we want those shoulder blades back and down. From there, we're going to dig our heels into the ground and we're just going to elevate our hips off the ground slightly. Once our hips leave the ground, nothing should change in our shoulders whatsoever. Now, once you can own that for about maybe 20-30 seconds, try the single arm variation, and I'm going to rotate a little bit so you can see what's going on here. So again, we've owned our reverse plank, which is that symmetrical shoulder packing. Now, if we're doing a right-sided get-up, we're going to shoot our hips or scoot our hips over towards our right arm. From there, we're going to go into a nice solid lower body positioning that we would see in a get-up, and then we're going to take the right hand, place it in the overhead position. As you can see, nothing has really changed in my down arm, which is my left arm. Now from here, we're just going to drive up and we're going to perform an isometric hold. And again, 15 to 20 seconds seems to be the sweet spot. Now try these drills with your students to, one, help improve the shoulder positioning or 2 to help teach the shoulder positioning. The next drill I'm going to show you is the hard style sit back. Now, I've seen so many people perform get-ups, and let's say they've done a full get-up and then they get back down to the elbow, and the last step is just to come to the floor and they just drop. And it could be a technique issue, or it could be just the fact that they don't have a strong core. And this is where the hard style sit back comes into play. So we're going to start nice and tall. We're going to dig our heels into the ground, and we want to try to keep our heels dug into the ground as we do this exercise to try to keep those hamstrings engaged. Now from here, we're going to pull our rib cage towards our pelvis. This isn't a big flexion based exercise. All we're trying to do is to maintain this positioning for the duration of the drill. Now from here, we're going to try to eccentrically control our body for 5 seconds on the way down, and if possible, we want to take 5 seconds on the way up. So I'm going to show you it right now. We're going to dig them in, a little bit of abs, a little bit of breath. And that's about 5 seconds. And on the way back up, it's going to be a little bit easier to dig the heels in. We're going to come on up. So this is one of those exercises, you don't need a ton of volume, but make sure that you're controlling both portions and make sure that you use a little bit of that breath to improve or increase that intra-abdominal pressure. The last exercise I'm going to show you is marching with the kettlebell overhead. Now, I love this exercise because it does give you immediate feedback as to whether or not the kettlebell is in an optimal overhead position. Too many people, when they're doing get-ups or they're doing presses or even snatches, they lock out here or they lock out too far back. Now, when we have the kettlebell in the overhead position, we're going to bring our feet together and we're just going to start marching. Now, when we start marching, the positioning of the kettlebell is going to give us some pretty good feedback as to whether or not our entire body is supporting the load or whether or not we're just hanging on that shoulder joint. So again, we're going to get that kettlebell overhead. Once you get the kettlebell overhead, you're going to perform some basic marches. This is going to reinforce a nice overhead position, but it will also teach you where you should finish in the overhead position, whether you're doing a get up, whether you're doing a snatch or a press.